You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today, a conversation about mosque security in Edmonton with Masood Peracha, founder of the Edmonton Council of Muslim Communities. But first, some news headlines. Trudeau says Afghan resettlement in Canada is challenging. Charity plans to establish first care home for Muslims with disabilities. Calls to extend medical coverage to all immigrants in Newfoundland and Labrador. Footage release shows fatal shooting of black man in Michigan. And now the details. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the process of helping Afghan refugees come into Canada has so far been challenging. He claims that the Taliban prevents Afghans from leaving the country. Trudeau maintains that the Immigration Office tries to speed up the process, but did not provide any specific measures on how. His response comes after a local media investigation revealed thousands of Afghans approved for resettlement in Canada are stranded in Pakistan and are running low on food and money. Canada has only welcomed 1/4 of the 40,000 refugees they pledged. Dean Support Services, a Muslim charity, plans to open Canada's first care home for Muslims with disabilities. The organisation says there is a crisis, with over 14,000 people on group home wait lists in Ontario. Wait times span over 2 decades. Noor Villa will provide halal food, services and teach independent living skills, all of which are designed to be culturally sensitive to the Muslim community. Rabia Khida, CEO of Dean, says to local media that the home is needed as larger organisations cannot respond to unique lifestyle needs currently. A fundraiser on Launch Good asks for people's support to open Noor Villa. Newfoundland and Labrador's Anti-Racism Coalition urges the government to provide medical care plans and prescription drug coverage to all immigrants entering the province. Following the province's decision to provide coverage to Ukrainian refugees, Coalition co-chair Sobia Sheikh says not extending the same benefits to all immigrants is a very unwelcoming gesture, local media sources report. Currently, migrants with less than 1 year left on their immigration permits are unable to apply for health coverage. Health Minister Jack Haggie said Tuesday that the department is unaware of systemic issues in the province's visa coverage. He says that it's likely due to paperwork issues, and the province has resolved most of them. The Grand Rapids Police Department in the US state of Michigan have released 4 videos of an April 4th shooting that left a black man dead. The clips show an officer fatally shooting Patrick Lyoya, 26, in the back of the head during a traffic stop. According to one video, Lyoya was on the ground and facing away from the officer, who later pulled the trigger. State police say they will conduct a transparent, independent investigation of the shooting. The lawyer representing the family, Ben Crump, says that the officer used excessive and fatal force on Lyoya and should be prosecuted for his violent, reckless and unjustified killing. And that's it for the news. Mosques across Canada are having in mind security issues in light of attacks that have been happening over the last few years. To talk to us about what's happening in Edmonton, Alberta, we have with us Masood Peracha. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Ramadan Kareem to you and your family. How's it going?
Ramadan Kareem. Alhamdulillah. Everything is going well.
Alhamdulillah. The Alberta government had recently announced that they were going to be giving funding for security measures in places of worship across Alberta. Has this impacted your mosque community in Edmonton?
Yes, it has. This is not completely new funding. They did provide some funding previously, but recently they have announced an increase in the overall funding for all places of worship. And yes, of course, our mosques in Edmonton are planning to take advantage of that. Yes. And a number of our masajid are actually applying for that additional money.
So I know that in the past there was some very scary incidences in the Al Rashid Mosque in Edmonton. Can you tell us a little bit about what's been happening to the mosques in Edmonton over the last year or two?
Uh, there have been various kind of incidents in and around some of our mosques. The one that you referred to was about 2 or 3 years ago when somebody from an organization called Soldiers of Odin showed up at Al Rashid Mosque and tried to harass some of the people, congregants who were coming in. That was some time ago. There were some incidents of graffiti being uh, plastered on one or two of the walls of the mosques. But more recently, at one of the mosques, which is called Al Amin Mosque, there was an attack on a lady who was sitting in her car with her children. She had brought them in for some Quran lessons, and she was just waiting with her children, and somebody just came out of the blue and tried to attack the car. Tried to harass her, and then went away. And apparently, he did not live too far from the mosque, and then came back with a shovel and tried to sort of attack her. Then until she decided to move away. Yeah, there've been incidents like that. Yes.
So the Soldiers of Odin, in case people watching aren't aware, is a right-wing group, and I don't know if that particular individual, the last incident that you just mentioned, was ever identified as belonging to any group. But obviously, these kinds of things make people afraid of coming to the mosque. So, what are the conversations at the board level like, or at your council level like, when you discuss these incidences and how to deal with them?
Um, well, we have tried to sort of coordinate actions at 2 or 3 levels with our individual mosque. As you probably know, in Edmonton, each mosque has its own board, which governs the mosque, and we are an umbrella organization that brings together our various member organizations. So the actual action takes place at the mosque level, but there is discussion and some further consultation at our board level, and we are in touch in turn with the hate crimes unit of the City of Edmonton Police.
Hmm.
We coordinate actions with them as much as possible, and uh, the board mosque actually has been reviewing again the availability of security infrastructure in and around the building.
So
Uh,
can you give us some specific examples? Give us some specific examples of the things that they'll be doing.
um, well, some of the obvious things are, of course, just adding more cameras, some infrastructure, but there's a discussion of strengthening the fences around one or two of our mosques. Um, at one time, actually, some organizations, Muslim organizations, applied for a federal grant which provided infrastructure, and that money was used toward strengthening the perimeter fence and some of the other parts of infrastructure. Uh,
Mm.
this grant from Alberta government is more general. You could use that towards anything from, subsidizing the engagement of guards to, uh, improving some of the security monitoring systems and so on. Yeah.
And have you considered or have you done congregation training? I often thought when I was in the mosque, if somebody walked in right now, I wouldn't know what to do. So it would be good to educate the congregation. If what would you do if somebody walked in? Have you considered doing that kind of training for the congregation as well?
Uh, it's interesting you should mention that. As you probably know, in Edmonton, uh, for some reason, the target of some of these attacks have been ladies,
Mm.
Muslim women, and they have felt most vulnerable. And so at least two of our mosques have initiated the providing training in self-defense, like karate for our sisters. So that's one of the initiatives I know it's going on. We haven't had any specific type of training for congregants in general, but I know that there's a discussion of providing training to specific groups, especially the ladies who seem to be sort of the target of some of these hate crimes and hate incidents.
Yes, I'm glad to know that's happening. I hope it expands throughout all the mosques there. Let's change topic a little. You mentioned the Edmonton Council of Muslim Communities umbrella organization. Tell us a little bit about when it was founded and what the idea behind it was.
Certainly. Our origins actually lie in the aftermath of the tragic events of 9/11. Right after the 9/11, some of our community leaders at that time came together with a concern about the safety or some of our mosques, because they thought that there might be all kind of a backlash against Muslims because there was so much publicity around the names of some Muslims who were involved in 9/11. So some of our leaders at that time got in touch with the city mayor and the chief of police at that time. And fortunately, nothing untoward happened at that time. But then shortly after that, we decided that, this would not be business as usual from there on. So we decided to build some bridges between us and the rest of our sort of larger communities. And that's when the Edmonton Council of Muslim Communities was formed. Right after 9/11, yes.
I noticed on the website that you have Sunni and Shia mosques. Is that unusual to have that kind of relationship?
Yes, I think it's somewhat unique as far as I know. The discussion we had at that time was, if we were going to form an organization and we didn't know what the scope of this organization was going to be, except that, we wanted to be able to create an organization that could speak for the Edmonton Muslims. And that's where we brought in different communities together on one table. And it was decided that, we were going to be inclusive in terms of both Sunni and Shia branches. And we also have, among the Shia community, we also have the Ismaili community, who are also part of the ECMC at that time. And they have been part of this ever since. So far as I know, this is somewhat unique in Canada, but we have existed for the past 20 years, and our relationships have been just fine. The one thing I think that one sustaining factor that I believe is important is that we decided not to delve into the religious matters or matters of interpretation. And we defined our focus as to be around certain defined areas, and those defined areas are things like public policy, education, communications, media relations, that kind of thing, and people safety.
Yes. I'm sorry to cut you, but we're out of time. Thank you for joining us on the show.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching Canadian Muslim News. If you like what we do, please share, like, and subscribe. Stay safe and God bless.